I'm Ava Morgan. 3 weeks after my divorce, I found out I was pregnant with the child of the man who had just signed the papers to leave me. And everything became even more shocking when I discovered I had been exposed to a deadly experimental drug created by his own company. From that moment on, I was forced to face conspiracies, threats, and truths that could destroy my entire family while my baby's life hung in the balance. Before I share my story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and hit the like and subscribe buttons if you've ever overcome the toughest moments for your family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The divorce papers had been signed for 3 weeks, and I still couldn't bring myself to take off my wedding ring. It sat in a small velvet box on my nightstand in my new Austin loft, catching the morning light like it was mocking me. Everything in this space was supposed to be fresh. Exposed brick walls, large windows overlooking the city, blank canvases waiting for paint. Yet all I could see were the ghosts of what used to be. I'd traded our sprawling house in Westlake for this 900-square-foot box, telling myself it was liberating. No more empty rooms echoing with Ethan's absence. No more waiting for the garage door to open at midnight, hoping he'd chosen us over another board meeting. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd given up my art career to support his dreams, only to end up alone with nothing but time to paint. My phone buzzed, another message from Mom asking if I was eating enough. I ignored it and grabbed my keys for my routine doctor's appointment, the last thing on my mind. But Sophia had insisted I keep it. "You look tired," Dr. Martinez said, her kind eyes studying me over her glasses. "Divorce will do that." I managed a weak smile. She nodded knowingly, then frowned at her tablet. "When was your last period?" I had to think. Time had become elastic since signing those papers. Maybe 2 months ago? Stress? Probably. Let's run a few tests to be sure. 20 minutes later, my world tilted on its axis. "Congratulations, Ava. You're about 6 weeks pregnant." The words hung in the air like a bad joke. 6 weeks. That would be. I closed my eyes, remembering that night. One last attempt to save what was already dead. Ethan had come home early, for once, found me crying over our wedding album. We'd fallen into each other out of habit, desperation, or maybe just loneliness. "That's not possible," I whispered. "The tests are quite clear." Dr. Martinez's voice softened. "I understand this might be unexpected given your circumstances." Unexpected? What a clinical word for the tsunami crashing through my chest. She continued talking. Something about prenatal vitamins and follow-up appointments, but her next word snapped me back to attention. "There's one thing. We detected some unusual markers in your blood work. It's probably nothing, but I'd like to run some additional tests. Have you been exposed to any unusual medications or chemicals recently?" "No, What kind of markers?" "Nothing to worry about right now, just being thorough." But her reassuring smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I stumbled out of the clinic into the blazing Texas sun, my hand instinctively moving to my still flat stomach. A baby. Ethan's baby. The child we dreamed about during those early years when we still believed love could survive anything. My phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, and I almost laughed at the cosmic timing. He'd barely called during our marriage, now he couldn't seem to stop. I let it go to voicemail. Back in my loft, I sat on the floor, I hadn't bought much furniture yet, and stared at the ultrasound photo. Just a tiny blob, barely visible, but already changing everything. I thought about calling him. My thumb hovered over his contact a dozen times. But then I remembered his face during our last fight, the way he'd said he wasn't ready for children, not with the company at such a critical juncture. Everything was always at a critical juncture with Ethan. Instead, I grabbed my phone and started recording. "Hi, baby," I whispered to the camera. "I know you can't hear this yet, but someday I want you to know the truth. Your father doesn't know about you. Maybe that makes me selfish, but I need to figure this out first. I need to know I can do this alone because I can't go back to disappearing again." My voice cracked. I stopped recording and curled up on the hardwood floor, letting the tears come. Outside, Austin lived and breathed around me, oblivious to my world reshaping itself cell by cell. 3 weeks divorced, 6 weeks pregnant, and a medical mystery I couldn't shake from my mind. I pulled up my laptop and typed, "Unusual blood markers pregnancy." The search results made my blood run cold. Most were benign, but a few mentioned exposure to experimental drugs, industrial chemicals, things that made my artist's hands shake. What had Ethan's company been working on? What had he brought home without telling me? The questions multiplied like the cells dividing inside me, each one more terrifying than the last. Santa Fe was supposed to be my escape, a 3-month interior design project for a new art gallery, far enough from Austin to breathe, close enough to run back if I needed to. I told everyone it was a career opportunity. I told myself I wasn't running away. The drive took 12 hours. I stopped every 2 to stretch, to eat crackers, to throw up. Morning sickness had hit with a vengeance, though it didn't seem to care about the time of day. By the time I reached the high desert, the sun was setting behind the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, painting everything in shades of blood and gold. Sophia was waiting outside her new cafe, Luz y Sombra, light and shadow. Even after 10 years, she looked exactly the same. Wild curly hair, paint-stained fingers, that smile that said she saw through all your bullshit but loved you anyway. Mija, she wrapped me in a hug that smelled like coffee and turpentine. You look like death. Thanks. Really what a girl needs to hear. She pulled back, studying my face. When were you going to tell me about the baby? My mouth fell open. How did you... Please, I've known you since freshman year. You're glowing and puking. It's not rocket science. She grabbed my bags. Come on, let's get you settled. Her apartment above the cafe was pure Sophia. Canvases everywhere. Plants growing wild. Furniture that looked salvaged but somehow worked together. She'd set up the guest room with the kind of care that made my eyes water. Tea? She asked, already heading to the kitchen. No coffee? Not for you, pregnant lady. I sank into her couch, exhausted. I don't know what I'm doing, Soph. You're surviving. That's enough for now. The next morning, she introduced me to the gallery project and, unfortunately, to Daniel Pierce. He was sitting in the corner of the cafe, laptop open, wearing a rumpled button-down that had seen better days. Attractive in that disheveled journalist way, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. Daniel's a regular, Sophia said, not quite meeting my eyes. Daniel, this is my friend Ava. She's doing the gallery design. He stood, shook my hand. His grip was firm, confident. Ava Morgan, the artist? Former artist. I design interiors now. Right. Something flickered across his face. Weren't you married to Ethan Caldwell? My stomach dropped. Divorced. Why? Just curious. I'm working on a story about healthcare tech companies. His name keeps coming up. I forced a smile. Well, I can't help you there. We didn't exactly discuss his work. That was a lie. We used to discuss everything, back when we were partners instead of strangers sharing a house. But Daniel didn't need to know that. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the gallery work, measuring spaces, selecting colors, anything to avoid thinking about the life growing inside me or the man I'd left behind. But Daniel kept showing up, always in that same corner, always watching. Finally, on day 4, he approached while Sophia was in the back. I'm sorry about your divorce, he said, sitting across from me uninvited. But I need to ask, did Ethan ever mention the Lazarus Project? The what? A medical trial his company was funding, off the books, some pretty questionable practices. I shook my head. Like I said, we didn't talk about work. Right. He slid a business card across the table. If you remember anything... After he left, I stared at the card. Investigative journalist. Specializing in corporate corruption. My hand moved to my stomach, remembering Dr. Martinez's words about unusual markers. Don't trust him, Sophia said, appearing beside me. Journalists are vultures. You invited him to your cafe. He pays well and tips better. Doesn't mean I trust him. She sat down, took my hand. Ava, what aren't you telling me? I almost broke then. almost told her about the blood tests, the fear that had been eating at me since leaving Austin. But my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll regret it. Think about your baby." The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Sophia caught it, read the message, and her face went pale. "Pack your things," she said. "You're staying with me from now on." But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd already run straight into the very thing I'd been trying to escape. And somewhere in Austin, Ethan was probably pouring himself another scotch, oblivious to the storm heading our way. The baby moved for the first time that night, just a flutter like butterfly wings. I lay in Sophia's guest bed, hand on my stomach, and whispered, "I'll protect you, whatever it takes." The art opening was Sophia's baby. 6 months of planning culminating in wine, cheese, and Santa Fe's elite pretending to understand abstract expressionism. I'd designed the space to let the art breathe, but now, standing in the middle of it all, I couldn't breathe at all. Because Ethan was here. He stood near a massive canvas, wine glass in hand, looking like he'd stepped out of a different life. The corporate polish was gone. His hair was longer, a beard shadowed his jaw, and he'd lost weight. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Hollow, haunted, searching the room until they found mine. Time froze. The chatter faded. 3 months since I'd seen him, and my traitorous body still remembered the shape of him. "Breathe," Sophia whispered beside me. "I can make him leave." "No." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "I'm fine." But I wasn't fine because Ethan was walking toward me with the same determined stride that once made me feel safe, and I had a secret growing inside me that would change everything. "Ava." Just my name, but the way he said it, like a prayer, an apology, a question all at once. "Ethan, I didn't know you were in Santa Fe." "Board meeting with investors. He paused, really looking at me. "You look different." "Divorce suits me." He flinched. "Good." But then his eyes narrowed, tracking over my loose dress, the way I'd turned down wine, how my hand had unconsciously moved to my stomach. "Can we talk, please? Just 5 minutes." "We have nothing to talk about." "I signed the papers, didn't I? But that doesn't mean—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "I've been trying to call you." "I know." "And you haven't answered." "Also known." Sophia stepped between us. "I think you should go." Ethan didn't even look at her. Those intense blue eyes stayed locked on mine. "I'm different, Ava. These past months. I know I have no right to ask, but—" The room tilted suddenly. The morning sickness that had plagued me for weeks chose that moment to surge. I pressed a hand to my mouth, pushing past him toward the bathroom. I almost made it. Almost. I barely reached a potted plant before everything came up. Mortifying. Sophia was there immediately with water and a towel, but the damage was done. Ethan's face had gone white. "You're pregnant," not a question. "Food poisoning," I managed. "Don't lie to me." His voice was low, dangerous. "Not about this." The crowd was staring. Santa Fe's gossip mill would feast on this for weeks. I straightened, wiping my mouth, summoning whatever dignity I had left. "Yes, I'm pregnant." "No, it's none of your business." "None of my—" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "When were you going to tell me?" I wasn't. The words hung between us like a blade. His face cycled through emotions, hurt, anger, something that looked devastatingly like hope. "It's mine." Again, not a question. "Biologically. That's where your involvement ends." "Like hell it does." "You didn't want children, remember? Bad timing. Company at a critical juncture." I threw his words back at him, each one a small revenge. "That was before—" "Before what? Before you realized what you'd thrown away? Before your guilty conscience kicked in?" My voice was rising. People were definitely staring now. "You don't get to waltz back in because you're having regrets." "You think this is about regret?" He stepped closer, and I caught his scent. Different now. No expensive cologne, just soap and something essentially Ethan. "You think I haven't replayed every moment, every choice, every time I picked a meeting over you?" "Yes, well, hindsight's a bitch." "Ava." "No." I held up a hand. "You want to know the truth? I'm 12 weeks pregnant. I found out the day our divorce finalized, and I made a choice to do this alone because I won't go back to being invisible in my own life. His phone rang. Of course it did. Even now, even in this moment, the electronic leash yanked. But then he did something I'd never seen in 8 years of marriage. He threw it against the wall. The crack echoed through the gallery. Everyone stared. Ethan didn't seem to notice or care. I'm done with that life, he said quietly. I'm done with all of it. But I was already walking away, Sophia's arm around me, leaving him standing among the shattered pieces of his phone and maybe, just maybe, his old self. The cold Santa Fe night hit my flushed cheeks. I gulped air, trying to calm my racing heart and rolling stomach. Well, Sophia said finally, that went well. Despite everything, I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. You were warned. Stay away from him. This time, I didn't show Sophia. This time, I typed back, go to hell. Because I was done running, done hiding. If someone wanted to threaten me, they'd have to do better than cryptic texts. I just didn't know how much better they were prepared to do. The packages started arriving 3 days after the gallery incident. Not flowers or generic apology gifts. Ethan knew better than that. First came the cobalt blue paint, the exact shade I'd spent 6 months mixing for our bedroom before giving up. Then my grandmother's easel, somehow rescued from storage, a sketch I'd thought lost in the move, now professionally framed. Each gift was surgical in its precision, designed to remind me of who we used to be. He's trying to buy you back, Sophia said, glaring at the latest delivery, a set of handmade brushes from that tiny shop in Prague where we'd honeymooned. No, I said quietly. He's trying to give back what he took. But even Ethan's new self couldn't compete with Daniel Pierce's persistence. He cornered me at the farmer's market, appearing between the heirloom tomatoes and local honey like a rumpled specter. We need to talk about your ex-husband. We really don't. I moved to the next stall. He followed. Ava, I have documents. Contracts Ethan signed. People are getting sick, possibly dying because of a drug his company pushed through trials. I stopped. What drug? RX-47, marketed for prenatal health. Ring any bells? My blood chilled. The unusual markers, the extra tests. My hand moved instinctively to my growing bump. Daniel's eyes tracked the movement. You took it, didn't you? I never took anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But you were exposed to it, maybe without knowing. He pulled out a folder. These women all have one thing in common. Partners who worked at Caldwell Tech. They all show similar blood anomalies. They all... Stop. My voice shook. Just stop. But he pressed the folder into my hands. Page 3. The signature authorizing human trials despite safety concerns. Look familiar? It was Ethan's signature. I'd seen it 1,000 times. On mortgage papers, anniversary cards, divorce documents. But this was different. This was my husband signing off on something that might have poisoned me, poisoned our child. There's more, Daniel said gently. But there's something else you should know. The trials were initiated by Ethan's father. Ethan might have been trying to stop them when... Ava? I spun around. Ethan stood 10 feet away, farmer's market bag in hand, looking between Daniel and me like he'd been punched. His eyes landed on the folder in my hands and his face went ashen. What is this? His voice was deadly quiet. Daniel straightened. The truth, something you seem allergic to. You son of a... Ethan stepped forward. Stop. I held up a hand. Both of you. This isn't happening here. But Ethan's eyes were fixed on Daniel with recognition dawning. I know you. You worked for my father. You wrote that puff piece about the company 5 years ago. Daniel's jaw tightened. Things change. People learn the truth. Or they get better offers. Ethan turned to me. Whatever he's told you, whatever he's shown you, he's not some crusading journalist. He was on my father's payroll for years. The ground shifted under me. I looked between them, my ex-husband who'd signed documents that might have harmed our child, and the journalist who'd hidden his own connections. You're both liars, I said quietly. You're both. The world tilted. My vision blurred. Ava? Ethan caught me as my knees buckled. "What's wrong?" "The baby," I gasped. Pain rippled through my abdomen. "Something's wrong with the baby." The next hours blurred together. Ethan driving like a madman to the hospital. Daniel following. Tests and ultrasounds and worried faces. The baby was fine. Strong heartbeat, moving normally. But my blood pressure was dangerously high. "Stress," the doctor said firmly. "You need to avoid stressful situations." I laughed bitterly. My whole life was a stressful situation. Ethan never left my side, even when I told him to go. Even when I said I didn't want him there, he stayed. Sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, fetching ice chips, holding my hand during the scariest moments. "I didn't know," he whispered at 3 a.m. when he thought I was asleep. About the drugs, about any of it. I signed things. God, I signed so many things without reading them. I trusted him, I trusted my father, and I was so focused on growth, on success, on proving I could fill his shoes that I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I kept my eyes closed, feeling tears slide down my cheeks, because I wanted to believe him. Despite everything, I wanted to believe this broken version of the man I'd loved. But wanting and trusting were two very different things. And with our child's life potentially at stake, I couldn't afford to confuse the two. Daniel had disappeared, leaving only the folder and more questions than answers. Outside my hospital window, Santa Fe slept peacefully, unaware that my world had become a minefield where every truth might be a lie and every gift might be poison. The storm came out of nowhere, the way they do in high desert. 1 minute clear skies, the next snow falling so thick you couldn't see 10 feet ahead. I'd driven to Ethan's rental house to collect the last box of my things. Stupid, prideful, but I needed to face that house one more time. The moment I walked in, I knew I'd made a mistake. Not just because of the weather, but because Ethan was there, standing by the fireplace with a glass of whiskey, looking like a ghost haunting his own life. "Power's out," he said without turning. "Roads are closed. You're stuck. I'll wait in my car. Temperature's dropping below 0. Don't be stubborn, Ava." But the cramp that seized my abdomen made the decision for me. I doubled over, gasping, and Ethan's glass shattered on the floor. "Not again," I breathed. "Please, not again." He carried me to the couch, hands gentle but urgent. "Where are your pills? The ones from the hospital?" "Car, in my purse." He disappeared into the storm. I lay there, breathing through the pain, whispering promises to the baby. "Stay with me. Please stay with me." Ethan returned covered in snow, lips blue with cold. He pressed the pills into my hand, wrapped blankets around me, then built up the fire until the room glowed orange. "We need to get you to a hospital." "Roads are closed, remember?" Another cramp hit. I bit back a scream. He paced, phone useless, without power, then stopped. Stared at my medical bag like he'd seen a ghost. "Those aren't standard prenatal vitamins." I was too focused on breathing to answer. He picked up the bottle, reading by firelight. "These are, Ava, these are specifically designed to counteract RX-47 exposure. How long have you been taking them?" Since the first tests. Dr. Martinez prescribed them when she saw the markers." His face crumbled. "It's true then. You were exposed. Because of me. Because I brought that poison home. Because Ethan." I reached for his hand. "The baby's fine. The vitamins are working. This is just stress, high blood pressure, not the drugs." But he was spiraling, the way he used to when his father's shadow grew too dark. I'd seen it before, but never like this. Never with tears streaming down his face. "I have to tell you something," he said. "About my father. About why I've been different." "You don't have to." He left a confession. In his will. All of it. The trials, the cover-ups, the people he paid off. And a list of everyone exposed, everyone who might be affected. Your name wasn't on it, but I was sleeping next to you every night while you unknowingly carried it home." He nodded, looking shattered. He knew, and he used me as a vector. His own son. Another cramp hit, but lighter this time. The pills were working. Ethan held my hand through it, and for a moment we were just two scared people in a storm, bound by the life between us. There's more, he whispered. The company wants me to bury it. They're offering me everything: money, power, the CEO position permanent. All I have to do is keep quiet. And? And I'm testifying next week, against all of them. I've already sent copies of everything to the FDA, the press, the FBI. He met my eyes. I'm probably going to prison, Ava. But at least our child will grow up knowing I finally did the right thing. Our child. The first time he'd said it like we were still an us. The storm raged outside, but inside, something shifted. This wasn't the man who'd chosen conference calls over dinner, who'd missed anniversaries for mergers. This was someone new, forged in the fire of consequences. I recorded videos too, I admitted. For the baby, in case something happened to me, so they'd know the truth. Can I see them? I should have said no, should have protected that private piece of myself. But the firelight made everything feel like a confessional, so I pulled out my phone. My voice filled the room, talking to our unborn child about love and loss and starting over. Ethan watched with an expression I'd never seen before, wonder mixed with devastation. "You're going to be an amazing mother," he said when it ended. "I'm terrified." "Good. That means you care." He squeezed my hand. "I'm terrified too." We stayed like that through the night, hands linked, watching the fire die to embers. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving the world crystalline and new. The roads were clear. I could leave. But something had thawed between us in that dark night, something I wasn't ready to name yet. "Thank you," I said at the door, "for taking care of us." He touched my belly gently, the first time I'd allowed it. "Always," he promised, "whether you want me to or not." The coffee shop was empty, except for us. Daniel had texted from a burner phone, insisting we meet immediately. Against my better judgment and Sophia's loud protests, I went. He looked worse than before. Unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes darting to the door every few seconds. "Their cleaning house," he said without preamble, sliding a flash drive across the table. "Everyone who knows about RX-47. 3 researchers dead in accidents. A whistleblower supposedly committed suicide." "Ava, you're not safe." "You mean we're not safe?" I pushed the drive back. "I'm not doing this alone." "Your ex-husband made his choice. He's testifying. That makes him untouchable, for now. Too visible. But you—" "D!" He leaned forward. "Your collateral damage waiting to happen." My phone buzzed. "Sophia, where are you?" Someone broke into the cafe. My blood froze. "I have to go." "Wait." Daniel grabbed my wrist. "That drive has everything. Financial records showing money funneled to a shell company. Names of everyone involved. Insurance if something happens to me." "Why are you giving this to me?" His laugh was bitter. "Because I helped create this mess. Your husband's father paid me to write propaganda while people died. I thought I was just spinning corporate PR. I didn't know what? That my sister was one of them. Took RX-47 during pregnancy. Lost the baby at 7 months. She never recovered." His voice cracked. "So yeah, this is personal." I took the drive, hands shaking. Outside, Santa Fe tourists wandered past, oblivious to conspiracies and cover-ups. How had my life become this? When I reached the cafe, police cars lined the street. Sophia stood outside, paint-stained and furious. "They destroyed everything," she said. "Paintings, supplies, even the coffee machine. And they left this." A photo of me, heavily pregnant, with a red X drawn over my stomach. On the back, final warning. "That's it." Ethan's voice made me jump. He stood behind me, looking dangerous in a way I'd never seen. "You're both coming with me." "Like hell," Sophia started. "They broke into your place. They're threatening Ava and our child. This ends now." He turned to me. "I've hired security. Safe house outside town. Please." "Since when do you make decisions for me?" "Since people started threatening to hurt you because of my family's sins." His control cracked. "Please, Ava, I can't lose you both." Looking at the photo in my hands, at Sophia's destroyed cafe, I realized we'd moved beyond pride and old wounds. This was survival. "Fine, but I'm not doing this blindly. I want to know everything. Every detail about RX 447, your father, all of it. Done. The safe house was a fortress disguised as a ranch. Security cameras, reinforced windows, men with earpieces trying to look casual. It felt like a luxurious prison. That night, Ethan laid out everything. Documents, emails, recordings of his father discussing acceptable losses. The scope was staggering. RX 47 wasn't just one bad drug, it was part of a larger experiment in prenatal genetic modification. They were trying to enhance fetal development, he explained. Create smarter, stronger children for wealthy clients. But the side effects? Miscarriages, birth defects, maternal complications. I finished, hand on my belly. How many? Hundreds confirmed, maybe thousands unreported. Sophia poured herself wine with shaking hands. And you signed off on this? I signed acquisitions, partnerships. I never looked closely. I trusted him. He was my father. Ethan's voice broke. I was so focused on proving myself, on being the perfect successor. I signed whatever he put in front of me. Well, people died. Yes. No excuses, no deflection, just acknowledgement. My phone rang. Dr. Martinez. Ava, thank God. Are you somewhere safe? They came to my office asking about you. I didn't tell them anything, but I'm safe. What did they want? Your medical records, specifically the blood work showing RX 47 exposure. She paused. Ava, I ran additional tests on your latest samples. The levels are dropping faster than expected. The vitamins are working better than we hoped. Your baby shows no signs of genetic abnormalities. Relief hit so hard I sat down. You're sure? Completely. Whatever else happens, your child is healthy. After I hung up, Ethan was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Good news? He asked quietly. The baby's fine. Perfect, actually. He closed his eyes, shoulders sagging. Thank God. This doesn't change anything between us, I said, needing boundaries even in crisis. I know. But his hand found mine anyway. I needed to know our child would be okay. Sophia cleared her throat. Hate to interrupt, but we have bigger problems. If they're cleaning house before Ethan's testimony, then we need to make sure the testimony happens, I finished. No matter what. The Austin Convention Center glittered with false promise. Tech elite, medical innovators, investors with more money than conscience, they all gathered for the annual Healthcare Innovation Gala. The same gala where Ethan had won CEO of the Year just 18 months ago. Now he stood backstage, hands steady despite everything at stake. He'd lost weight, gained gravitas. The boy playing at power was gone, replaced by a man who'd counted the cost. You don't have to do this, I said, adjusting his tie out of habit. Yes, I do. He caught my hands. For our child. For all the children who didn't make it. I'd come with Daniel and Sophia, armed with copies of everything, financial records, victim testimonies, the works. If Ethan's public confession wasn't enough, we'd make sure the truth found daylight. 2 minutes, Mr. Caldwell, a stagehand called. Ava. He pulled me close, pressing something into my hand. Whatever happens, remember I love you, both of you. Before I could respond, he was walking on stage to thunderous applause, the prodigal son returning to his kingdom. They had no idea he'd come to burn it down. Thank you, Ethan began, gripping the podium. 18 months ago, I stood here believing I was changing healthcare. Tonight, I'm here to tell you how we destroyed it. The room rustled, uncertain. This wasn't the script. Caldwell Technologies pushed through a prenatal drug called RX 47. We marketed it as revolutionary. We knew it was poison. Chaos erupted. Board members stood, phones appeared, security moved toward the stage. But Ethan kept talking, his voice carrying over the noise. My father orchestrated trials on pregnant women without their knowledge. When complications arose, we buried the data. When people asked questions, we buried them too. Cut his mic, someone shouted. But Daniel had anticipated this. The screens around the room flickered to life, displaying documents, bank records, victim photos, a mother holding her stillborn child. Medical reports showing organ failure, financial transfers to silence whistleblowers. I signed these authorizations, Ethan continued, even without amplification. I was complicit through ignorance and ambition. But ignorance isn't innocence. Security reached the stage. Ethan raised his voice. The FBI has everything. The real trials start Monday, and I'll testify against every single person involved, including myself. They dragged him off stage, but the damage was done. The room exploded in accusations, denials, threats of lawsuits. Camera phones captured everything. I pushed through the crowd, Sophia and Daniel flanking me. We needed to find Ethan before... Mrs. Caldwell? I turned. A woman in an elegant suit smiled coldly. Board member. I'd met her at company parties. It's Miss Morgan now. Of course. How unfortunate about Ethan's breakdown. Mental illness runs in the family, doesn't it? His father was quite unstable toward the end. The only illness here is greed. Her smile sharpened. Be careful. Pregnancy makes women so vulnerable. So many things can go wrong. Sophia stepped between us. That sounded like a threat. Just concern for an old friend. The woman's eyes never left mine. After all, stress is so dangerous for expectant mothers, especially ones with, unusual blood markers. My blood chilled. They knew. Of course they knew. Come on, Daniel urged. We need to go. But commotion erupted near the exit. Ethan was being arrested, cameras flashing as police led him away. He caught my eye across the chaos, mouthed something that might have been, "I'm sorry," or "I love you." Then he was gone. The plan's working, Daniel said as we reached the parking garage. Look. His phone showed news alerts already firing. Tech CEO confesses to medical conspiracy. Caldwell whistleblower arrested at gala. FBI launches investigation into RX-47 deaths. But I barely heard him, because in my hand was what Ethan had given me, a USB drive and a note. Everything they don't know, I have. Guard this with your life. When our child asks if their father was a good man, show them I tried to be in the end. Ava? Sophia touched my arm. You okay? No. I pressed a hand to my belly, feeling the baby kick. But I will be. The Austin skyline glittered indifferently as we drove away. Somewhere, Ethan was being processed, photographed, reduced to a case number. Somewhere, board members were shredding documents and calling lawyers. And somewhere, dozens of families were seeing the news and finally understanding why their babies never came home. Justice was messy, I realized. It wasn't clean or satisfying. It was Ethan in handcuffs and me raising our child alone and Daniel living with guilt and Sophia's cafe destroyed for proximity to truth. But it was still justice. And sometimes that had to be enough. 8 months later, the New Mexico sun painted everything gold the day Oliver was born. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect, despite everything that tried to break him before he even existed. When the nurse placed him in my arms, his eyes, Ethan's eyes, opened and looked straight into mine. He's beautiful, Sophia whispered, tears streaming. And loud. Definitely got your lungs. I laughed through my own tears, counting fingers and toes. All there. All perfect. The vitamins had worked. Love had worked. Stubbornness had worked. Ethan had been sentenced to minimum security, 18 months with good behavior. He'd testified against everyone, sparing no one, including himself. Caldwell Technologies had crumbled. Victims were being compensated. It wasn't enough. Nothing could bring back the lost babies, but it was something. He wrote every week. Long letters about accountability, about the books he was reading, about dreams where Oliver called him Dad. I hadn't answered yet. Didn't know if I would. The gallery in Santa Fe was thriving. I'd poured everything into it. Rage, hope, the strange beauty of starting over. My paintings, sold now, touched by tragedy and transformation. Critics called them visceral. I called them survival. Package for you, Sophia announced a week after Oliver's birth, carrying in a box marked with legal stamps. Inside, photos, letters, and a leather journal dated 20 years ago. Ethan's father's handwriting filled the pages. If you're reading this, I'm dead, and the truth is out. Good. I've carried this poison too long, I read in disbelief. The conspiracy went deeper than we'd known. Government contracts, international trials, a web of complicity stretching decades. But the last entry stopped me cold. I see how Ethan looks at that artist girl. She's good for him. Maybe she'll save him from becoming me. If I were a better man, I'd warn her. But I need my son to carry on, even if it damns us both. Under the journal, another note in Ethan's handwriting. My father knew what you meant to me. He knew, and he still let you be collateral damage. I'll never forgive him. I'll never forgive myself. But I need you to know. You did save me. Just too late to save us. Oliver fussed in my arms. I shifted him, feeling the weight of histories and futures colliding. There's more, Sophia said gently, pulling out an envelope marked for Oliver. Inside, establishment papers for a medical research fund in Oliver's name. Millions allocated to study and treat RX-47 exposure effects. A trust ensuring Oliver and I would never want for anything. And a simple card. For my son. May you become the man I'm still learning to be. Love, Dad. I sat in the nursery that night, rocking Oliver while Santa Fe settled into sleep. The mobile above his crib turned slowly. Painted birds I'd made during the long months of waiting. My phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Morgan? This is Warden Davies. Ethan Caldwell is requesting to add you to his visitor list. For you and Oliver? I looked at my son, who'd inherited his father's stubborn chin and my determination to survive. What would I tell him someday? That his father was a villain? A hero? Both? Neither? I'll think about it, I said. But I already knew. Forgiveness wasn't a destination. It was a journey. And maybe, just maybe, Oliver deserved to make that journey with both parents, broken and healing as we were. A year later, I stood in the prison visiting room, Oliver on my hip. Ethan entered in gray scrubs, thinner but clearer-eyed than I'd ever seen him. When he saw Oliver, he stopped breathing. "Hi," I said. "Hi," he whispered back. Oliver reached out, curious about this stranger who looked at him like he hung the moon. Ethan's hand shook as he extended one finger for Oliver to grab. "He's got your grip," he said, wonderstruck. "And your eyes. And hopefully both are better angels." We sat across from each other, Oliver between us like a bridge over everything broken. Not together, not apart. Just two people learning to be parents in the ruins of what we'd been. "Thank you," Ethan said finally, "for letting me see him. He deserves to know you, the real you. I'm still figuring out who that is." "Good," I said. "So am I." Outside, New Mexico stretched endless and possible. Inside, Oliver babbled happily, unaware he was healing us both just by existing. Some stories end with kisses, some with closure. Ours ended with beginning.